Good afternoon. Welcome back to Senate Education. It's Thursday, March 18th at 2:50. We have a representative, I believe. Elizabeth, are you the director of the Governor's Institute?
Yes, the executive director.
Executive director with us. We know that the Governor's Institute has a long, very strong history in the state. I know I've had cousins that have participated, and I suspect others know people or participated themselves, or maybe their children have participated. And summer is coming up, and we are interested in knowing just generally how things are going with the Governor's Institute and what kinds of things, summer opportunities students might have through all of you, and with a particular eye to middle and low income Vermonters who might not otherwise have opportunities such as the ones you offer. So with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a wonderful opportunity to just thank you for many, many years of support of the Governor's Institutes of Vermont. I think Senator Perchlik, you had a student attend, and I hope that that was a good experience for them. I'm getting a nod.
You had 3, Senator Hooker?
3.
Oh, fantastic.
I had 2.
All right. So some of you are familiar with the general tone, but I did send along a document yesterday. Hopefully you see it, or you will see it. Just to give you a sense of the history, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you have a crazy plate. I heard the end of the last part. I saw the agenda later. I'm coming with good news to say, we're in good hands. We've got 38-year track record of taking students from Vermont, high school students, and transforming them into the people that they want to become, and giving them the opportunities to access new friends, new skills, new mentors, and a new lease on what their life and career opportunities could be. It was actually very interesting to hear Sophie Statney talking about the characteristics of our state colleges, and our in a normal year, we are in residence on a lot of different campuses across the state, including Castleton, including Linden, and on, UVM included. We kind of serve a little bit as an entree to what does it mean to be in college, and a little bit of a marketing tool for folks to understand what the Vermont colleges offer, and encouraging folks to stay here in Vermont, or after a time away, return, which is actually my story. I'd love to tell you just a little bit about my involvement, because I think it tells the story of the Institute. I was 15 years old, had a mouthful of braces. I don't know what you all looked like when you were 15 years old, but longer hair than this, and braces. I played the trombone. It was my entire life. I just loved to play trombone, and I was passionate about it. I had some support, but when I went to the Governor's Institute on the Arts, I met my people, and they encouraged me to keep going, and they opened up new doors. For example, I learned about salsa music. I was really into jazz music at the time, but I learned about a whole other, culture, Cuban music, Latin music, and something that I hadn't been exposed to before, and really opened up my world of what music could be and how I could participate in it. And it also gave me a network of friends across the state, and the confidence that this was something that if I really wanted to do it, I could pursue it. And long story short, I became a professional musician and have been all around the world with folks like Michael Bolton, Ice Cube, St. Vincent, so it has really been a full circle. And I'm so honored to be back in Vermont now and have the opportunity to provide this, this kind of transformational experience. Even in just 1 week, 2 weeks, a Vermont high school student can have their world opened up. And I'm so privileged to be a part of that circle, and you should be too, because the support of the Vermont legislature has allowed us to make that affordable and make that an option for a student at no matter what their family's financial situation is. Something you should know, I just want to highlight a few things from what I sent along. We give scholarships, or we give financial aid. We call it a sliding scale tuition model. And so basically folks choose where on that scale they fit, where their family's income lines up. And we give some amount of discount from our tuition price to over 80% of our students. So I think there's sometimes a misconception that we are there for just a certain echelon of students, if you will, but we are really available to everyone, and the numbers bear it out that we are giving discounts up to 100% sometimes, or very close, 99%. Our sliding scale goes down to $10 for a 1-week institute.
Elizabeth,
So
may I ask a quick question? We have and maybe just a bit of a conversation here as you go along, if you're comfortable with that. How do you reach out to those students? In other words, sometimes, is there a concerted effort to find those students, again, that might not otherwise see your ads, if you will, or know about you?
Absolutely, and I think, so one just that knowing that we have sliding scale, and actually this year you asked specifically about what's coming up, but 2021, we are pay what you can. So we have a suggested tuition,
Wow.
but it's literally pay what you can. We know it's been a really hard year for families,
Right.
and we want to make it, not even a conceptual barrier about applying for this opportunity. In terms of outreach, we partner with schools. Those are our key partners, and we have touched every school in the state. Most years we have, more than 70 schools participating, usually closer to 80 schools participating. And we serve over 500 students a year. We'd like to serve more. And that's something that we'd be looking to in the future. But we serve a lot more than we used to, and we'd like to continue to grow that and to continue to make sure that cost is not a barrier. In terms of reaching out, we have partnerships with a lot of different nonprofit organizations. I should say we are a nonprofit with the Governor's Institute title. Sometimes folks confuse us for a government agency, but we are an independent nonprofit. And so any investment from the state legislature, it comes through the AOE, but that is then matched at least 3-to-1 by private dollars by us, that we can make that happen. And really that state funding is key to allowing us to make that affordable, to allowing us to offer pay what you can this year, for example. But anyway, we reach out to a lot of partners, Spectrum, the Vermont Housing Authority, lots of boys and girls clubs, teen centers. I was actually just on a call with a woman who works in the Mount Ascutney healthcare system about how we can connect with pediatricians and family doctors, and really concentrating on those places where we know we have less of an uptake right now, or we might be able to serve some of the students that we really want to be able to serve at whatever socioeconomic level, whatever family background they might have. For example, we reach out with the New American communities in the state, open to any partnerships that you can think of, as you come across them, because we really do want to make sure we're getting into all those corners.
Senator Chittenden, your hand is up. That's an old one? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions before I go on?
Senator Hooker.
I'm just curious to know what your budget is, and are you set for this year?
Yeah, so our budget in a normal year, when we have in-person residential institutes and therefore the room and board costs that go to places like Castleton and Linden, that is usually about $1.1 to $1.2 million. This year, it's about $700,000 because we don't have those costs, and we are running online programs. As another thing that Sophie mentioned earlier about, what is online education? Are people excited about it or not excited about it? Well, if you do it well, it can work for folks. And so that's what we strive to do as well, of making it very creative and hands-on and keeping the hallmarks there. Anyway, so that's our budget, to answer your question. Our appropriation has been level for 17 years. It is about $192,000. And we had a recommendation that go up from Commissioner French last year, but because of COVID and everything, it kind of went by the wayside. So we're looking, we're not asking for that this year, although that happened, it would be wonderful if it went up. But I think next year we'll be looking to, reinvigorate that discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Just want to highlight a couple other things. We did a long-term outcomes study. And so, as I mentioned, this program has been around for 38 years. And so we have alums in a lot of different stages of life. And when they looked back up to 30 years later, folks were saying 88% of the folks we surveyed said that it was one of the most important experiences of their high school career, of those high school years, that it really was a seminal turning point for them as they gained confidence and awareness of what kind of career opportunities they could have. And anecdotally, just we hear folks say it changes their life. So I just, we have a lot of data on it. We have a lot of anecdotes about it. And I'd like to invite any of you to visit, whether online or in person, in the coming year or two, because it really is magic. And there's a science behind it, but in the end, it's magic. It's people who care so much and believe in creating a space for students where they feel supported and that they can be themselves and that they can find the best version of themselves. And I was just, speaking with another person this morning who was saying, well, is it really for anyone? And I said, yes. If you are motivated enough to do it and show up and do the work and participate, it is for you. We understand that not everyone has had an opportunity to take higher level, engineering courses. Like, we offer an engineering program to help folks expand their possibilities. And maybe some folks are already down the line and taking advanced physics, and there's something there for them. And there's also something there for someone who's just exploring. And there's actually a really lovely mix when those folks come together.
Great.
Are there other questions?
I don't see any. Senator Lyons, you're unmuted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do have a question. Did you play the trombone around the world?
Yes.
That's awesome. I'm asking this for a reason. It does relate to Governor's Institute. So, what was it with professional organizations or with with your own group or?
So I have been a freelance musician for many, many years, and I was based in New York City for a long time. But I grew up here in Vermont, and I've moved back and live in my childhood home again. So it's nice to be
awesome.
home. Yeah.
But Governor's Institute truly influenced you and your work.
Yeah.
Our families had similar experiences, so I was really fascinated to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. It's been a fascinating career, and I'm now so glad that it kind of comes around and I can offer that to other folks.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure thing. I think just, to highlight that again, I hear a lot of discussion about folks saying, are we losing our young people? Are they going elsewhere? And I think we have such rich opportunities right here. And it's okay if folks go and then come back too, that they experience something else and bring those perspectives and integrate them back into Vermont and bring the best of that back. So I think we do a good job. I mean, I know for myself, my professional and personal network has a lot to do with the Governor's Institutes and that those initial years, dating back to when I was 15, I still have friends across the state from that experience.
Can I ask you, does the Governor's Institute encourage learning other languages?
Great question.
Yeah. So we have rotated our topics through the years. It depends on what we have offered. For a long time, we had an institute on Asian cultures, which had a second year attached to it where everyone went to China the following year. So they studied about various Asian cultures, and then the following year took a trip to China. That was heavily funded by the Freeman Foundation. So at the moment, it's not directly aimed at languages, but I do get requests from folks about starting new institutes. And certainly there's exposure to a lot of cultures. We'd try to have a very, very diverse staff. That's something we're working on improving. But I think we've got a good start towards it. So it's not direct, but it's a past and a potential future.
Terrific. because it's difficult to travel today, but
Right.
sometimes you don't have to leave home to leave home.
Well, one advantage too of the online learning is that we can bring in guest artists without any travel costs from anywhere. So
Yeah, that's terrific.
thing. Senator Campion asked about what are we offering this summer. So I'd love to let you know about that.
Yeah, before you do that, I just want to see if Senator Lyons, or your good questions, and then Senator Hooker.
I was just looking at the offerings for this summer, so I'm glad you're going into that, Elizabeth. And, I guess I do have a question when you're discussing this. Is there a minimum number of students that participants that you need, and what's that? What is that process like as you're developing what you're offering in the summer?
Could you just restate that a little bit? What do you mean the process?
How do you determine whether or not you're offering the particular institutes that are listed?
Sure. I should say that several of them are very, very long running. The Arts Institute was the founding institute, so that's 38 years old. Our Science and Technology is quite up there, as well as our Global Issues Institute. So those are very long standing. Some of the other ones are newer. We actually have had astronomy the past few years. We're not able to offer it this summer, but we hope it will return for 2022. So that's another one that you're not seeing there, but that's kind of in our current mix. In terms of deciding what to offer, we kind of take the pulse of what we hear students are interested in. We are one of the largest training programs for STEM. And in particular, we offer incentives for folks who identify as young women to come at a lower rate to encourage participation and try to even out the gender imbalance in those fields. So that's a consideration. We really want to keep that. We've seen a huge demand for our Health and Medicine Institute, and that's in partnership with the Northern Vermont AHEC, Area Health Education Center. And that's been extremely successful. And I can't imagine that letting up given our climate around COVID and everyone's sort of consciousness around health issues right now. I think we're looking to open up career paths for folks that are well-paying, good jobs, interesting jobs. It's not always about a direct path to a job. It is about exploring, but it's great to have kind of both in the picture. So for this summer, we're offering the arts, which encompasses writing. It's a little more expensive when we're in person, but we're not really offering dance this year, but we're offering songwriting, so touching on music. We're offering theater making. In fact, one of our faculty is also faculty at NVU at Johnson. So there's a nice parallel there. So the arts, engineering, they explore a whole bunch of things that's focused on energy and like learning more about energy systems and how they work and how what we do affects them. Entrepreneurship, and that takes place usually at Vermont Technical College, and that's for college credit as well. So we have two for college credit, entrepreneurship and environmental science and technology. That one is normally at UVM, and we're doing our best to, even when online, again, be interactive, hands-on, so those students are going to go out and test the water quality of their stream with a little kit that we're going to send them. And they're going to report back and get their data connected UVM lab and really get the experience of presenting their research with each other. So it is kind of a hybrid model, and it's not just taking in information on a screen. We're very much about interactive and hands-on learning. We have global issues and youth action, health and medicine, as I already mentioned, mathematical sciences, and technology and design, which has a lot to do with microcontrollers, coding, a lot of the skills that we know lead to excellently paid jobs with the right path. We're also running for the first time a year-round institute this year on leadership, and that's ongoing. So that takes place on 1 weekend a month with a few other ancillary activities, but primarily 1 weekend a month throughout the academic year. Did I answer your question?
You did. Thank you.
Great. It's a lot, and I think it's all about having folks understand and come and see what we do, because each of those programs has a unique strength and a unique perspective. And I think the common theme is that they're immersive, they're hands-on, they're interactive, and transformational.
And it sounds like some of it's going to be in person this summer.
So it's online.
It's all online. Okay.
It's all online this
Okay.
summer. We made that call earlier on. You know,
Sure.
we know that the vaccines are changing, but we know we can deliver an incredible experience based on last year. If we are able to bring folks together for a day, for a campus tour, barbecue, face-to-face time, we will, but that's sort of TBD.
And what campuses are you trying to use our state colleges in UVM in general?
Yes, we have many partners, and they include the state colleges. Right now, we don't have a partnership with Johnson's campus, but we have in the past, and that would be something we'd be interested in for the future.
Okay. Any other questions? Elizabeth, any other comments or anything you think we should know?
I think I've covered most things. I just, again, wanted to really say thank you, because I have kind of sat in for this, and I heard one of your sessions last week, and I just see how much work you do behind the scenes that I'm sure folks don't thank you for all the time, and looking out for these incredible young people. So thank you for that.
Thank you for everything that you're doing. And I suspect appropriations will have you in, if they haven't already, as it relates to the budget and other dollars coming in. And then we will likely have you back as well.
Great. Well, it was my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It was ours. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Okay, committee. Returning to H81. I know we had some discussion yesterday. And we did hear back. There are a couple of other people that would like to testify. I know Mr. Nichols is here. Good to see you, Jay. As well as, I believe, Ms. Siglowski. And good to see you. And so why don't we transition right into H81? We'll then have a committee discussion, and I'll let all of you decide what direction you are interested in moving in from here. So with that, good to see you both. Not sure if who would like to begin? Mr. Nichols?
I think I'm starting, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're just going by the list that we saw from Jeannie.
Okay,
so.
terrific. It's a good.
I don't know about you, but we do whatever Jeannie tells us. That's been our
smart, yes. We're with you there.
So for the record, Jay Nichols, Executive Director of the Vermont Principals Association, testifying today on H81. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this brief testimony. Title 16-2102 created a commission on public school health benefits. And the purpose for that was negotiations over health benefits to move away from the local level and move to the state level. And when the commission was created, the law in a lot of ways ignored school employees that happen to be administrators. The commission was set up with 10 members total, 5 of who were representatives of school employees and 5 who were representatives of school employers, i.e. school board members. And we are on the labor side on this issue, principals are and school leaders are. 4 members of the labor side were representing the greatest number of teachers, administrators, and municipal school employees in the state from a labor organization, which obviously means Vermont NEA. The second part of that, which is what our ask is about, is that 1 member appointed by the labor organization representing the second greatest number of teachers, administrators, and municipal school employees in the state. Unfortunately, this union-centric approach has left school administrators essentially out in the cold with no real representation. We respectfully ask that the law be amended to require at least 1 representative to be a school administrator appointed by the Vermont Principals Association. We have almost 700 members, and they feel as though they're not adequately represented. This is not to be critical of the current commission members. However, having someone on the labor side of the equation that actually has an understanding of the roles and massive responsibilities of school and school system leadership is only fair, since our members are required to adhere to any agreement made regarding their health benefits. Principals and other educational administrators have traditionally taken less pay, often in order to receive more in benefits. Most administrators in Vermont did not pay 20% of insurance prior to the new law. Some got 100% insurance, many get 90%. Now with the proposed changes by H81, most principals also could be hit with a sliding scale that would adversely affect them. This despite the fact that administrators work many more hours, many more days, and many more weeks in a school year than most support staff and teachers, and unquestionably have a great deal more responsibility. For public disclosure, my wife has been a paraeducator for almost 30 years, so I know of which I talk, I think. The fact that we have a shortage in people willing to heed the call of school leadership leads me to believe that we should not propose laws that will further limit the rationale for talented educators to pursue educational leadership. Yesterday, I heard Senate Education Committee members discuss, after the testimony of Julie Filberti, I hope I'm saying that right, that having a seat at the table is important. Well, that is our number one request today. School leaders are employees who do not have a seat at the table, and I would like to see the law changed to rectify that so that we can be at the table. And subject to any questions, that's all I have for official testimony. Thank you.
I know that's very helpful. Did you share this with the House?
No, it didn't seem like we really had an opportunity to share it anywhere with the House.
Because I mean, I'm just trying to get
with General Affairs.
Yes.
Yeah. So when it was in General Affairs, I sent them written testimony and I asked to testify, and I never was allowed to testify, but I was allowed to submit written testimony. And then we were under the understanding that it was hopefully going to go to House Education where we could testify. And then House Education chose not to hear it, evidently. And so that's why I'm here today.
Thank you. I'll loop back with, yeah, and I think both House and the Senate, I understand things get lost in the shuffle, but for it to have been in the House for almost 6 weeks, for you not to have had an opportunity to say your piece on that is unfortunate. And there are, I wonder, and I'm just thinking aloud here, because I think there is an interest, I could be wrong, in keeping and working with people who have an upcoming deadline. I wonder, and if Mr. Desmarais is, I don't see him right here right now, I wonder if we can do this in 2 parts, but that's a conversation for another time. Senator Perschlick and then Senator Terenzini, please. And you're muted, Senator.
Sorry, thank you. Jay, you said that you thought it was a union-centric approach. Can you explain why you think it's a union-centric approach?
Well, simply because in the actual law itself, it says, and I'm looking down here, 4 members appointed by the labor organization representing the greatest number of teachers, administrators, and municipal school employees. And then B of that same statute says, and then 1 member appointed by the labor organization representing the second greatest number of employees. School administrators, Senator Perschlick, are not very often in unions.
Right.
That's the issue, because so many of them have belonged to single school districts, where places like Burlington, South Burlington, where I used to be an administrator, those places had unions often, but single school districts, it was really no purpose for that. So throughout history, principals have not been part of unions. And this also includes special ed directors, business managers, superintendents, whoever's not represented by a union that is on the labor side of this law.
And then how many are appointed by the school boards? 5?
I think they get all 5. I mean, they're on the opposite side of this with us. We'd be negotiating against them, obviously, but I think it's 5.
Right. Well, that was what I thought. And so I just found a hard time saying 5 and 5 is centric to the unions when it's.
Oh, I don't mean in the overall negotiations. The Vermont NEA is representing us on this. What I'm saying is, on our side, principals aren't really having the representation that we'd like. We'd like to have somebody on our side of the equation. And right now we don't.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's union centric in that of the employees, they're all represented by the union, not that the whole negotiation is union centric.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wasn't there a thing where we did I remember from last year, and maybe that was in the bill last year, where we clarified that the administrators are separate, that the superintendents, maybe it was just superintendents and not the others you're talking about.
That's correct. And it didn't end up going anywhere anyway, but it never included principals,
It was just the superintendents. It pulled them out of the whole negotiation.
which from having done a lot of negotiations myself and had been a superintendent for a long time, that makes sense to me because the superintendent is working directly for the board,
Right.
whereas the other employees are supposed to be, including principals, working directly for the superintendent.
And that's still in H81. That remained, or did that not?
No, I don't think that's in there. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't, Sue would know more about that than I do. I just knew that the part about school leaders and was not in there having it. I think they presented something on H63, which is the other thing, Senator Campion. H63 was presented and I asked to testify on that. I wasn't given the opportunity to testify on that either. And then that got basically killed and turned into just 81 in general affairs.
Jay, did you bring this up last year on S226?
I did bring this up last year in a committee meeting and Senator Beruf told me that he didn't want to discuss it. That's essentially it. And I believe you were in the room.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Terenzini.
Just a clarifying question actually for you, Senator Campion. After it leaves here, where's the next stop for H81?
Appropriations.
Appropriations. Thank you.
And they'll look at the financial impact as well as the dollar amount in there. Senator Lyons.
So I don't remember looking at the group that Jay is talking about. It's not currently in our bill. It's in the underlying statute. Is that right? Yeah, so I would be interested in looking at that. It seems like a reasonable concern, an issue for us to consider. May not do anything, but we certainly should, I think, look at it.
Sure, we can certainly do that. Senator Hooker. Oh, Senator Lyons, did you have a follow-up?
No, I was just going to say, but we might do something. I didn't want to be so negative.
Mr. Nichols, you mentioned that the NEA is representing the principals as well as the others, correct? So can you just clarify for me what having a principal-specific representative on the board, how that's going to make a difference?
Well, I think having somebody that actually understands the job that's entailed. I mean, I can make a stronger argument that you'd be better off having 5 principals on the board than 5 teachers on the board, because principals have all been teachers. They understand how school districts run. They understand how, what is involved in every job. Whereas if you're a teacher and you've never been a principal, you have no idea about the complexity of that job. So we're just saying, let us have one person on that committee, a principal or an assistant principal or a special education director, it doesn't matter. Somebody who's got administrative experience that understands, the immense, massive amount of work for those positions.
So would this bill, H81, would allow lower paid school staff to negotiate a different premium contribution and out-of-pocket contribution? And would having a principal on the board allow another level of contribution? Or are you saying,
No, I don't think that's really the issue. I think that what H81 is going to do, if it's passed, is will allow for like a sliding scale where people can take into consideration the amount of money an employee makes. Mm-hmm. And one of our biggest issues with that is if you're going to do that, then you need to take into consideration the amount of work a person does. Principals don't get summers off. They don't have a school year calendar. They work a lot more nights. They have a lot more responsibility. They're on call on the weekends, as are most administrators. And all that stuff should be factored in. It's pretty hard to factor it in if you haven't experienced it. Having a principal there that can say, hey, listen, you're talking about sliding scale, but I work 260 days. You work 175 or 185, whatever it might be, just so they can have that conversation and be adequately represented is all we're asking for.
I think we should do it by the hour.
That would be
And
great
that
for
teachers would
principals.
be paying a lot less as well. Thanks.
We'll do that. We can do that for senators too.
Good.
Senator Persley. You're muted, sir.
Twice in a row. So Jay, what you're saying is that possibly the healthcare negotiation would involve a different level of payment for healthcare premiums or out-of-pocket expenses for principals and others that are at the administrative level.
No. What I'm saying is if you change the law, you're allowing for that negotiation to take place, regardless of who's representing the group. So I would think that you'd want to have somebody representing the group. You know, I would want to have a paraeducator on there. I'd want to have 2 or 3 teachers on there and an administrator on there. So I'm not saying that would necessarily happen, but by allowing the changes that H81 could potentially allow, depending on what happens at the collectively bargained agreement at the state level, you could be opening up for that. That has nothing to do with the principal being added. Having a principal being added or an administrator being added simply make sure that those folks are represented, and that's got to be 600 or 700 people at least.
Right, but if they're represented as part of the group, you're not suggesting that the negotiation might include. It could include a different payment for principals, right? If
It include a different payment for anybody, any different type of category. If you open up that lens.
But you're not advocating for that.
No, I'm not advocating for that. No.
But you think just having the principals and others as part of the team, they will help to come up with a better negotiated settlement that would meet all the teachers plus all the principals.
I think that's very possible, but I think more importantly, everybody will feel like they're represented.
Okay, and can you remind me the Principals Association's view of the bill? You're opposed to the bill.
H81?
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing that we are opposed to is the possibility of the sliding scale. We don't think that should be in there. That does worry my members.
Okay.
And the reason for that is I tried to mention before is that for years, a lot of principals did not take big raises because they would take things like more insurance or vacation, or they'd freeze their salary if their budget was tough. And when the law changed and they became part of this collectively bargained agreement, many of them all of a sudden actually lost money. They got pay cuts. And if I was having 100 people apply for principals jobs right now, I wouldn't be that worried about it. We're getting 2 or 3 people applying for principals jobs. It's a huge worry. So I really don't want to do anything that's going to have us have less teachers heed the call to leadership.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Chinden.
Well, picking up on Senator Perchlik's question there, I thought I was following, but now I'm just want to clarify. This group will be negotiating healthcare for statewide educators, including paraeducators, and what they negotiate right now will also apply to the healthcare condition for our principals.
Already does.
Okay, so again, you should be represented there. This
Absolutely, that's our thought. Yes.
All right.
Only fair.
Senator Terenzini.
Jay, are you saying that in your opinion we're having a lack of candidates apply for principal positions?
It's not my opinion. It's just fact. We have more people in the state of Vermont that have the principal's license that don't apply for principal jobs than we do have people that are trying to become principals. So in many places, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I for one, I take your word for it. I just find it unique and interesting. I just served on a principal hiring committee last week, and we had 38 applications. So I thought, what you're saying in that, I mean, we must be very lucky.
Are you in Rutland City?
I don't know if it was public knowledge.
What district though are you?
Rutland County, a school in Rutland County.
Yeah. Well, if it's in Rutland City, there's an advantage.
I don't know if it's public knowledge that we had so many applications. So.
All right. But we can get lots of applicants for South Burlington, for some of the bigger school districts that pay more. And oftentimes though, those applicants are people that are already principals in our other schools. And so when they leave, then we have a rural school that doesn't pay as much, so has to try to hire that position. And they might only get 2 or 3 applicants. 2 years ago in North Country got 0 applicants. They had to take one of their elementary principals and make him the principal in North Country Union High School.
Wow.
And that happens. Pulteney just went through the same thing. They've been a whole year without a principal. And now they're in a situation where they got a retired superintendent that's covering for the rest of the year as they try to find somebody for next year. It's getting harder and harder, especially in our rural towns.
And please, sir, I don't want you to think I just said that to try to prove you wrong. I just found it unique that you made that statement, and then we had such a great success. So anyways, interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Nichols or comments from Mr. Nichols? Any thoughts on Mr. Nichols' request at this time? Please, Senator Lyons.
I just think I think we should look at it. It doesn't sound unreasonable to me at all. And maybe by looking at the underlying statute, we might change our minds. But I can't imagine why. It just seems fair.
Senator Perchlik, please.
Already unmuted. I'm prepared this time. The only thing I wonder about is the whole point of these negotiations is have an equal balance between the union and non-union, or the employers, and having the principals are in there but not working with the union seems like, you know, you're throwing off that balance in a way that could be problematic. And then you know, if it's the principals, we took out the superintendents. I'm pretty sure that language is in H81, then why not, you know, you add every single category that, you know, why not the business managers? They have a very different job too. And why not the others that aren't in there? It seems like it's problematic to change it from an even balance between the union and the employers. But,
can I comment on that?
Please.
Thank you, Senator Perchlik. Just two quick things. One, if you took all the administrators out, you know, our association never asked to be part of that in the beginning. That would be fine. But I think instead of looking at it from a union versus school board perspective, it might be more advantageous at a state level to look at it from an employee versus an employer level. We're employees. We negotiate with the board. You know, a lot of my job is working with principals that are having problems with their school board or with their superintendent or whatever it might be. So our goal would be to work with the members of the union to try to craft the best deal we could for the employees. Sorry, Sue, but that is what we would be trying to do.
So please correct me if I'm wrong. If we were to, first of all, I feel as the chair, you know, in this case, I'm just a facilitator of this conversation. If we were to make this change, it goes back to the House, and we either have a committee of conference or they agree with that change, which again can be fine. I know that there was some interest in accommodating the April 1 deadline, but again, there may be also another path to do this. I don't know where it, which I can talk to Ledge Council a little bit about, but I'll just raise that with the committee. And people will have to decide. Yes, Senator Hooker.
Yeah, I just, I share your concern about the timing, because I know that we've talked about, you know, negotiations starting the 1st of April. So I think that we have to be cognizant of that. But I do appreciate Mr. Nichols verifying that this is a bargaining bill. This is not a healthcare bill. It has nothing to do with premiums and stuff, but just a seat.
Who's at the table, mm-hmm. and who has the opportunity? Yeah. Senator Perchlik and then Senator Chiaranzini.
Yeah, one more thing on this. So,
sorry, Senator, and then Senator Lyons. Okay.
So, Jay, the principals were represented by the union in the last round, right? And they were allowed in the negotiations to have different payments. So, are you not happy with the solution that came out? I thought
No, we weren't allowed that. Different payments didn't come out of it. Everybody had the same payment.
Well, but that was allowed to be negotiated in the first year.
Right. Yes. And it may have been, we may have supported that as a group. We didn't ever have a chance to really weigh in on it. We weren't part of the process, but no, it has nothing to do with that settlement whatsoever.
But you're worried about potential impacts in the future.
I am. Yeah. And I'm also my members are just saying, why are we not represented on this? And I think they're right.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're represented by the union.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Terenzini.
Jay, maybe this isn't a question for you, but I sit here and I think this is a decision that we obviously have to decide on, but I go back and forth, to be honest with you, about H81. I've received emails from school districts down at the Massachusetts border all the way to the Canadian border. And overall, school boards have asked us not to support this bill. And they say it's going to have negative financial impacts to the taxpayers. It's going to make budgets tougher to create. It's going to raise property taxes. Do you have a response or a counterbalance to that?
I don't know if I have a counterbalance to that. I mean, my background, I was a principal for a long time, but I was a superintendent even longer. And I used to represent one of the biggest systems on the Canadian border. And I'm probably known as pretty cheap and pretty fiscally conservative. Just put it that way. I think the Vermont NEA would share that thought. So I definitely want to see us find a way to get healthcare costs down. I just think for us, the issue here is whether you go forward with 81 or not, if we're going to have a statewide bargaining commission that has employers on one side, employees on the other, then administrators should be represented on the employee side. That's all. So I understand where the school board members are coming from. Totally. I totally get that, Senator Terenzini.
Senator Lyons.
Well, I was thinking if we are under the gun in terms of time crunch. If we decided to do something about this and include a change to the group, there may not be time to make the change this go round. But we could certainly put a date certain, going forward. And then that gives some time for other committees to get involved. I'm thinking, suppose we said it'll go into place next year, then there's certainly time for discussion within the House committees and our committee as well. But so I don't think we have to make the absolute final decision, but maybe we can open the door up a little bit.
Senator Chittenden.
So to Senator Terenzini's point, I've heard from many school boards as well. And what I've taken, and tell me if this is not consistent, and I think it's germane to this discussion, the school boards do like a lot of what's in H81. They just don't like everything in H81. There are some pieces of language specifically with regards to why it settled the way it settled that I think they are welcoming of. So with that being the case, I don't know if Jay wants to clarify whether or not the Principals Association is opposed to H81, or you see it as ultimately an improvement over the language that will otherwise overrule these negotiations. That would be helpful for me. But as for adding you to this body, I'd love for the NEA to just swoop in and say, we'd be happy to have one of our three or members be from the Principals Association, because they get to choose. I don't know if that's feasible or not, but since you'll be represented, I'd be interested to hear what Jeff Fannin has to say about working with you to have you be one, or you help appoint one of the people that will be a part of this group negotiating for healthcare that will affect your constituency.
In terms of Jeff Fannin, we'll make the commitment right now that we'll pick somebody who was a Vermont NEA member, which is not hard to do because most of my members were Vermont NEA members at one time as teachers. Again, I'm not trying to get into I supported the idea of a statewide bargaining commission 15 years ago, and I supported a statewide teachers contract. So I'm not going to argue against what I said a long time ago. What I will say is, though, specifically on this commission, our biggest issue is that we just want to make sure that we're represented. And if administrators were completely taken out and allowed to negotiate on their own, like they did for the previous 150 years, that would be okay. And if you're going to keep us in the bargaining group, then allow us to have somebody to represent us that's actually done the job. That's really, Senator Chin, and I'm not trying to ride on the fence on this, but that's really the point that I want to drive home here from our association.
Senator Perchlik.
Sorry to keep going around on this, but I'm thinking of my position in the state government union, and just to hold the way kind of I understand union bargaining collective bargaining working, that they're members, people that work for the state that are members of the union, but they're represented by the union. We don't have them get a seat at the table to say, well, I'm not part of the union, so I should also be part of the negotiating team. So I just think it just seems like a bigger deal to add somebody to the 5 and 5 thing. I understand the Principal Association's position and thinking there, but I think it's a bigger deal. And I think pulling them out, because it is a decent number, goes counter to the whole goal of having a statewide thing. So, right now, I guess I'm where Philip Ruth was last year, and not wanting to add it in right now, not seeing how big of a problem it is, because it is the bargaining on the healthcare. There's opportunities for them to bargain on the other side for the pay if something, if they don't feel they got a fair shake in the healthcare bargaining.
Sorry, we have a little snafu in appropriations at the moment, and part of me would like to see Senator Perchlik go down and help them figure that out. I don't know if you're willing. It's S13, which is the weighting study. Would you be willing to do that, Senator Perchlik? You're muted, sir.
How do I do that?
I will send you, I will write to, I do apologize, everyone. I just, it's that time of year. Why don't we take, if people don't mind, could we just take a 5-minute pause, and Senator Perchlik, you and I can just stay on here for a moment and chat, and everybody else